Hey guys, tonight we venture into the shadows of the galaxy far, far away, where the real power brokers operate beyond the reach of Jedi councils and Imperial fleets. The smugglers, syndicates, and spies who shaped galactic history from the Underworld, where a single whispered secret could topple governments and a well-placed bribe could alter the fate of star systems. Their story is one of survival, cunning, and the complex moral code that binds those who live beyond the law. So, before you settle in for this journey through the galactic underworld, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy exploring these hidden corners of the Star Wars universe with me. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the galaxy. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Get comfortable under your blanket, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. In the smoky depths of a cantina on Ord Mantell, where deals worth more than star destroyers are sealed with handshakes, and the wrong word can earn you a blaster bolt, an old Twi'lek information broker named Bix Kaleen clutches a datapad with trembling fingers. Her violet skin has gone pale, her eyes wide with the kind of terror that comes from knowing too much. The holographic display flickers with financial records spanning over 1,000 years, transaction codes that connect the fall of the Old Republic to the rise of the Empire, and names that should have been lost to history. She looks up at the human woman across from her, a former Imperial intelligence operative with haunted eyes and scars that tell stories of betrayal. Kira, she whispers, her voice barely audible over the cantina's ambient noise. What I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about who really controls the galaxy. The Emperor, the Rebels, even the Jedi Council, they were all just pieces on a board. But the players, the real players, they've been moving in shadows so deep that even shadows have shadows. The datapad displays a symbol that neither woman recognizes, yet something about it feels ancient, familiar, wrong. A stylized eye surrounded by interconnected rings, with smaller symbols radiating outward like a web spanning the known galaxy. Bix's hand shakes as she reaches for her spotchka. They call themselves the Shadow Collective, but that's just the name they let people hear. Their real purpose, their real power, it goes back to before the Sith, before the Jedi, to something that's been watching and waiting and pulling strings since the first hyperspace routes were mapped. Outside, the twin moons of Ord Mantell cast long shadows through the cantina's grimy windows, and in those shadows, something ancient stirs. The year is 7 after Endor, when the second Death Star's destruction sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. The Emperor's death created a power vacuum that no single authority has been able to fill completely. The New Republic struggles to establish legitimacy beyond the core worlds, their idealistic senators debating policy while entire sectors slip into chaos. Imperial remnants cling to fortified strongholds, their once mighty fleets reduced to desperate raids and petty tyrannies. In this twilight between empires, the criminal underworld has emerged as the galaxy's most reliable constant. From the neon-drenched cantinas of Nar Shaddaa to the asteroid mining stations of the Outer Rim, a new economy has taken root. Smuggler routes that once served the rebellion now carry death sticks and contraband weapons. Former Imperial officers auction state secrets to Hutt crime lords. Information brokers trade in currencies more valuable than credits, their networks spanning star systems and reaching into the highest levels of both Republic and Imperial command structures. This is the galaxy that Kira Thorne has come to know intimately. She learned its hidden rhythms during her final years in Imperial intelligence, when tracking rebel cells required her to navigate the same shadow networks that now provide her livelihood. Her pale blue eyes, sharp as Mandalorian iron and twice as hard, have witnessed the collapse of the only order she had ever known. The Empire's fall stripped away her rank, her purpose, her carefully constructed identity, leaving behind a woman whose skills proved too dangerous for honest employment and whose conscience carried too much weight for comfortable sleep. She sits in the cantina's perpetual twilight, studying the Twi'lek information broker across from her, with the analytical precision that made her one of Imperial Intelligence's most effective operatives. Bix Caleen has survived 37 years in the galaxy's most dangerous profession by reading people better than ancient Jedi read the Force. Her amber eyes miss nothing, from the subtle tells that reveal deception to the micro-expressions that betray fear. Yet tonight those same eyes hold a terror so profound that it seems to emanate from her very soul. The cantina around them pulses with the familiar symphony of the galactic underworld. In one corner, a table of Rhodian smugglers conduct heated negotiations in their native chittering tongue, their green hands gesturing emphatically over shipping manifests that list cargoes, both legitimate and decidedly otherwise. Near the bar, a scarred Deveronian fence examines what appears to be a genuine Alderaanian ceremonial crown through a jeweler's loop, his horned head nodding with professional appreciation. The air tastes of recycled atmosphere and accumulated desperation, seasoned with the acrid smoke of death sticks and the honeyed sweetness of Corellian brandy. This is Worldport, the primary spaceport of Ord Mantell, a city built within the ancient crater of an asteroid impact that occurred millennia before the first hyperspace routes were mapped. The city exists in distinct layers, each one reflecting a different aspect of galactic society. The upper levels cater to legitimate merchants and New Republic officials, their clean corridors and proper lighting maintained through taxes and regulation. The middle levels house the gray market traders and independent freight haulers, the backbone of inter-system commerce, operating in the spaces between legal and illegal with practiced efficiency. But here, in the depths where artificial gravity grows weak and atmospheric processes wheeze with mechanical exhaustion, this is where the galaxy's real business gets conducted. Drug cartels negotiate territorial agreements over games of sabacc. Arms dealers showcase their latest acquisitions to representatives of a dozen different conflicts. Assassination contracts change hands with the casual indifference of commodity futures. This is not evil, precisely, but rather the inevitable result of a galaxy too large and complex for any single authority to govern effectively. Kira understands this world because she helped create it. Her years in Imperial Intelligence taught her to see the connections that others missed, to follow credits through shell companies and dummy corporations, to map the invisible networks that actually determine the rise and fall of governments. She knows which shipping magnates also run spice operations, which senators maintain private armies through criminal proxies, which imperial governors have been selling state secrets since before the Battle of Yavin. This knowledge has made her valuable to a surprisingly diverse clientele. Corporate executives hire her to investigate competitors who may be receiving illegal subsidies from remnant imperial forces. New Republic senators seek her services when hunting war criminals who have disappeared into the criminal underground. Even former imperial officers occasionally retain her services, usually when they need new identities or safe passage to sectors beyond Republic jurisdiction. She asks few questions and delivers reliable results, which passes for honor in her current profession. Her reputation draws clients from across the Outer Rim and beyond. They come seeking someone who understands how power really works, who can navigate the labyrinthine relationships between crime syndicates, corporate interests, and political factions. She has tracked war criminals through a dozen star systems, exposed corruption that reached into the highest levels of planetary governments, and occasionally prevented conflicts that would have cost millions of lives. It is honest work, in its peculiar way, more honest than anything she accomplished during her years of service to the Empire. The Twi'lek across from her represents something different, however. Bix Caleen deals in information that shapes the destinies of entire sectors. Her networks extend from the Corellian shipyards to the spice mines of Kessel, from the universities of Alderan's survivors to the slave markets of Zygeria. If she is genuinely frightened by something she has discovered, the implications extend far beyond typical criminal enterprise. Kira's fingers trace the familiar weight of her concealed blaster as she reaches for the offered data pad. 7 years of freelance investigation have taught her that information this sensitive usually comes with a price measured in blood rather than credits. The device feels warm to her touch, as if it has been handling data that generates its own heat. The screen displays financial records that span not decades but centuries, showing monetary transactions that occurred during the Clone Wars, the Great Sith War, even the formation of the Old Republic itself. Names appear in the data streams that she recognizes from historical texts, figures who should have been dead for millennia, yet apparently continued to move vast sums through shadow accounts long after their supposed deaths. Corporate entities with founding dates that predate known galactic civilization, bank routing codes that lead to institutions which should not exist according to any legitimate financial registry. The most disturbing element is not the age of the records, but their scope. These are not the financial documents of a single criminal organization, but rather the interconnected accounting of what appears to be the galaxy's entire shadow economy. Every major crime syndicate, every black market operation, every government corruption scandal of the past 1,000 years appears to connect to the same ultimate source. Bix leans forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper despite the cantina's background noise. 3 other investigators have seen this data, Kira. All died within a week of accessing these files. The first appeared to be a speeder accident on Corellia, but the forensics were too clean, too perfectly consistent with mechanical failure. The second looked like a random mugging on Coruscant, but the mugger left behind a wallet containing 10,000 credits and took only the victim's datapad. The third simply vanished from his apartment on Bothawi, leaving no signs of struggle, no evidence of forced entry, no trace that he had ever existed except for lease agreements and utility bills. The implications hang in the recycled air like the smoke from a dozen different worlds' narcotic exports. Around them, the cantina's normal business continues with practiced indifference to their conversation. The Rhodian smugglers conclude their negotiations with elaborate handshakes and orders of expensive liquor. The Deveronian fence completes his appraisal and transfers a substantial sum to his seller's account. Musicians begin setting up equipment in the corner stage, preparing to provide entertainment for patrons whose idea of relaxation would terrify most civilized beings. Yet beneath this veneer of normalcy, Kira senses something fundamental has shifted. The hooded figure, who had been studying star charts in the corner booth earlier, has disappeared, leaving behind only empty glasses and a handful of credits that exactly covers the bill plus a standard tip. The cantina's basilisk bartender, a veteran of more conflicts than most beings could survive, keeps glancing toward the main entrance with the nervous energy of someone expecting unwelcome visitors. "Why bring this to me?" Kira asks, though she suspects she already knows the answer. Bix's smile contains no warmth, only the grim recognition of someone who has spent decades trading in truths that others preferred to remain buried. Because you are the only investigator I know who truly understands how the galaxy's power structures actually function. And because, according to these records, you have been on their surveillance lists since before you left Imperial service. Whatever this organization is, they have been watching you for a very long time. The revelation strikes Kira with the force of a turbo-laser blast, though she maintains the external composure that years of intelligence work have ingrained into her very bones. Her own name, embedded in financial records that stretch back through centuries of galactic history, connected to transactions that occurred decades before her birth. The datapad shows her Imperial Service Identification number, linked to accounts that funded rebel safe houses, the very same installations she had been ordered to locate and neutralize during her years of service to the Empire. The implications cascade through her analytical mind like falling dominoes. Someone has been playing both sides of every conflict she participated in, using her as an unwitting game piece in a strategy whose scope she is only beginning to comprehend. Her recruitment into Imperial intelligence, her assignments, her targets, even her eventual disillusionment with Imperial methods, all potentially orchestrated by forces that existed long before the Empire itself was conceived. She pushes back from the scarred permacut table, her chair scraping against the worn floor with a sound that seems unnaturally loud in the cantina's ambient noise. Around them, the evening's business continues with practiced indifference to the cosmic conspiracy being revealed mere meters away. A group of Corellian freighter pilots celebrate what appears to be a successful smuggling run, their laughter mixing with the clink of Warren's reserve bottles and the soft chiming of credit transfers. In the corner booth where the hooded figure had been studying star charts, a new patron has taken residence, though this one seems more interested in the quality of the local cuisine than in galactic navigation. "Show me everything," Kira says, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had once commanded Imperial intelligence operatives across a dozen star systems. The words feel like crossing a threshold from which there will be no return, accepting a burden that will fundamentally alter her understanding of her place in the galaxy. Vex's fingers dance across the datapad's surface with the fluid grace of someone who has spent decades coaxing secrets from reluctant databases. The device responds to her touch by engaging a series of security protocols so sophisticated that they seem to anticipate potential threats before they materialize. Biometric scanners verify her identity through multiple methods simultaneously, while quantum encryption algorithms create communication channels that exist for mere seconds before dissolving into mathematical impossibility. The datapad projects a holographic display that remains visible only to their specific viewing angle, a web of connections that spans the known galaxy and extends into regions that official star charts list as unexplored. Financial institutions on Munilins that predate the banking clan's official founding. Shipping companies based on Fondor, whose cargo manifests include materials that should not exist according to current scientific understanding. Information networks radiating outward from Nar Shaddaa, like the synapses of some vast electronic brain, carrying data that flows between criminal organizations, corporate boardrooms, and government offices with equal ease. They call themselves the Shadow Collective. Bix explains, her voice taking on the careful cadence of someone who has spent considerable time analyzing this information. But that designation appears to be merely the most recent name they have allowed criminal organizations to use when referring to their activities. Their true identity remains hidden even from operatives who have served them for decades. What you are seeing represents over a millennium of careful manipulation, patient planning, and surgical intervention in galactic affairs. The holographic display shifts and reorganizes itself, overlaying historical events with financial transactions in a way that reveals patterns invisible to conventional analysis. The Mandalorian Wars, those ancient conflicts that reshaped the galaxy's political landscape, were funded through shadow accounts that trace back to the same source. The rise of the Trade Federation and their eventual stranglehold on interstellar commerce was guided by investments and manipulations that originated from entities whose existence predates official galactic government. Even the Clone Wars themselves, that massive conflict that consumed an entire generation and paved the way for Imperial rule, show clear evidence of both Republic and Separatist forces receiving support from the same ultimate benefactor. Kira's training in intelligence analysis allows her to process these revelations with the systematic thoroughness that had made her one of the Empire's most effective operatives. They have been playing every faction against every other faction, she realizes, her voice carrying the weight of someone who suddenly understands the true scope of galactic politics. not seeking to control any single government, but ensuring that no individual power structure becomes strong enough to threaten their long-term operations. More sophisticated than that, Bix corrects, manipulating the display to show deeper layers of the conspiracy. They have been guiding the evolutionary development of galactic civilization itself. Every major technological advancement, every significant political upheaval, every cultural revolution of the past 1,000 years has served their ultimate purposes. But the question that haunts me, the question that cost 3 investigators their lives, is elegantly simple. What are they preparing the galaxy to face? The datapad emits a soft chime, indicating an incoming message that bypasses all standard communication protocols. Bix checks the transmission's origin codes, and her violet skin takes on an even paler hue, the natural luminescence of her species, dimming as fear floods her system. Her hands begin to shake as she reads the message's contents, though she attempts to maintain professional composure. "We need to leave immediately," she says, her voice tight with controlled panic. "Our presence here has been detected, and our window of opportunity is closing faster than I anticipated." They gather their belongings with the practiced efficiency of beings who have learned to travel light and move quickly when circumstances demand it. Kira palms her blaster while conducting a casual visual sweep of the cantina, noting changes in patron behavior that might indicate surveillance or hostile intent. Bix secures the datapad in a specially designed compartment of her jacket that appears to incorporate both physical armor and electronic shielding. The cantina's atmosphere has indeed shifted in subtle ways that would be invisible to casual observation, but ring alarm bells for anyone trained in recognizing potential threats. The conversations have grown quieter and more focused, with patrons paying more attention to new arrivals than to their own business. The musicians who had been setting up their equipment have abandoned their preparations and departed through the rear exit. Even the 4-armed basilisk bartender has moved closer to what Kira recognizes as a military-grade weapon concealed beneath the bar's surface. They exit through the cantina's rear entrance, emerging into the maze of maintenance corridors and service tunnels that form the hidden circulatory system of Worldport's lower levels. The passages here were carved from the asteroid's living rock during the city's initial construction, their walls blackened by decades of industrial exhaust and atmospheric recycling. Massive support beams hold up the weight of the city's upper levels, their durasteel surfaces weeping condensation that has formed mineral deposits resembling abstract sculptures. The air in these depths carries the distinctive tang of recycled atmosphere, mixed with the ozone scent of electrical systems and the metallic bite of industrial lubricants. Emergency lighting strips cast irregular pools of illumination, creating a landscape of shifting shadows that provides both concealment and potential ambush points. The distant hum of atmospheric processes creates a constant background noise that would mask the sounds of pursuit until hostiles were dangerously close. Borks leads them through a series of intersections that she obviously knows intimately, consulting a small navigation device that appears to be receiving real-time updates about patrol routes and security sweeps. Her knowledge of these passages suggests preparation that extends far beyond the current crisis, indicating long-term contingency planning that reinforces Kira's growing suspicion that nothing about this encounter has been left to chance. "There is a secure facility in Sector 7, Bix whispers as they navigate a particularly narrow passage that forces them to move in single file. It contains analysis equipment that will allow us to examine this data properly without fear of electronic surveillance or signal interception. More importantly, it will provide us with access to historical archives that may help us understand what we are actually dealing with." Kira follows, her mind racing through possibilities and implications. If the Shadow Collective has truly been manipulating galactic civilization for over a millennium, then every major historical event she learned about during her education at Imperial Academy was potentially a carefully orchestrated deception. The Jedi Order's rise and fall, the Sith Empire's recurring threats to galactic stability, the Republic's transformation into the Empire, all could be elaborate constructs designed to serve purposes that extend far beyond the apparent goals of any individual faction. The tunnel system branches ahead of them, offering 3 different routes that lead deeper into the asteroid's interior. Bix hesitates momentarily, consulting her navigation device and what appears to be real-time intelligence about potential threats along each path. The device's screen shows moving contacts that could represent security patrols, maintenance workers, or something more dangerous. She selects the leftmost passage, leading them into a corridor that slopes downward at a gentle angle. The air grows noticeably cooler as they descend, carrying the sharp scent of recycled atmosphere and the faint ozone signature of powerful electrical systems. The walls here show signs of more recent construction, with newer materials integrated seamlessly into the ancient rock matrix. Behind them, echoing through the passages they have already traversed, comes the unmistakable sound of footsteps that match their pace with mathematical precision. Multiple individuals, moving with a coordinated discipline that suggests military or paramilitary training, following their route with an accuracy that implies either sophisticated tracking technology or inside knowledge of their intended destination. The pursuit has begun, but Kira finds herself wondering whether they are fleeing from the Shadow Collective or being herded toward a predetermined encounter that serves purposes she cannot yet fathom. The secure facility occupies what was once the penthouse level of Ord Mantell's most luxurious resort hotel back when the asteroid city served as a prestigious destination for wealthy core world citizens seeking exotic entertainment among the stars. Those halcyon days ended abruptly with the outbreak of the Clone Wars, when military priorities redirected civilian shipping and transformed pleasure destinations into strategic waypoints. The hotel's abandonment was so complete that official records list the building as demolished, though its structure remains perfectly intact beneath layers of bureaucratic fiction and electronic camouflage. Bix activates security systems that represent decades of careful acquisition and modification, sealing blast doors behind them while engaging sensor networks sophisticated enough to detect the approach of individual beings from several kilometers away. The main chamber represents a fascinating merger of faded luxury and cutting-edge technology. Original artwork from the hotel's glory days hangs beside holographic displays showing real-time intelligence from across the galaxy. Marble floors imported from Naboo support equipment, arrays that contain more processing power than most planetary governments possess. This is where I assemble the galaxy's hidden history, Bix explains, settling behind a curved command console that seems to have grown organically from the chamber's ornate architecture. Every major information broker maintains a facility like this, a place where we can analyze data without external interference and store knowledge too dangerous for conventional archives. We serve as historians of the present moment, chroniclers of transactions that official governments prefer to pretend never occurred. She interfaces her datapad with the facility's main processing matrix, and immediately the chamber transforms into something resembling the nerve center of galactic civilization. Holographic displays spring to life throughout the room, showing the Shadow Collective's web of influence in previously unimaginable detail. What had seemed bewilderingly complex during their cantina meeting now reveals itself as almost incomprehensibly vast and elegant in its systematic approach to galactic manipulation. Financial networks span thousands of star systems, their transactions flowing through legitimate institutions and shadow banks with equal facility. Communication relays hide within commercial shipping routes, carrying information between criminal organizations, corporate boardrooms, and government offices faster than official diplomatic channels. Personnel files read like a comprehensive catalog of galactic history's most influential figures, many of whom supposedly died centuries ago, but continue to appear in operational reports with disturbing regularity. Kira studies these personnel records with growing amazement and horror. a Corellian noble who officially perished in a speeder accident during the Mandalorian Wars, appears in mission reports spanning a 50-year period. His activities including financial manipulation, intelligence gathering, and what appears to be diplomatic negotiations with species that had not yet made official contact with galactic civilization. A Twi'lek senator who vanished without explanation during the height of the Clone Wars shows up in current operational status reports, listed as actively coordinating smuggling networks throughout the Outer Rim territories. Force-based life extension techniques, Bix explains, noting Kira's expression of disbelief. The Shadow Collective has access to technologies and methodologies that can extend natural lifespans far beyond normal biological limits. Some of their most valuable operatives have remained active for centuries, accumulating knowledge, influence, and personal relationships that would be impossible for shorter-lived agents to develop. They represent institutional memory that spans eras. The financial records prove even more disturbing in their implications. The Shadow Collective has not merely influenced galactic events, but has actively engineered them with surgical precision. The Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo, that seemingly straightforward commercial dispute that catalyzed the Clone Wars, was funded through shadow accounts that provided exactly the resources necessary to escalate a minor trade disagreement into a galactic crisis. The banking clan's support for separatist forces came with invisible strings attached, ensuring that their military aid would prove sufficient to prolong the conflict, but insufficient to achieve decisive victory. Even the Death Star project, the Empire's ultimate symbol of technological terror, received covert funding through channels that trace back to Shadow Collective resources. But these financial contributions came with subtle sabotage built directly into the supply chains and contractor relationships that supported the superweapons construction. They wanted the Death Star to fail, Kira realizes, studying procurement records that show deliberately compromised components and strategically placed design flaws. The thermal exhaust port vulnerability was not an oversight or design flaw. It was intentionally engineered through corrupted contractors and compromised engineering consultants. Now you begin to understand their operational philosophy, Pykes replies, manipulating the holographic displays to show even deeper layers of manipulation. They do not seek to control galactic events directly through military force or political domination. Instead, they ensure that every major power structure contains the seeds of its own destruction, activated at moments that serve their broader strategic objectives. The Empire was allowed to rise to unprecedented power precisely because they had already guaranteed its eventual fall would occur at the moment most beneficial to their long-term planning. A new category of files captures Kira's attention, records that make her blood temperature drop several degrees as their implications become clear. Her own Imperial intelligence training appears to have been heavily influenced by Shadow Collective doctrine and methodology. The interrogation techniques she mastered, the analytical frameworks she learned to apply, even the psychological profiling systems she used to evaluate targets and assets, all originated from training materials and educational resources connected to the conspiracy. The revelation goes deeper than professional influence. Her personal psychological profile, compiled during her Imperial Academy evaluation, shows clear signs of modification and enhancement designed to produce specific personality traits and cognitive biases. Her analytical capabilities were deliberately strengthened while her capacity for unquestioning loyalty was subtly undermined. Even her ethical framework was shaped through exposure to philosophical concepts that would eventually create moral conflicts with Imperial methodology. "They shaped my entire development," she whispers, the realization hitting her with physical force. "My career trajectory, my professional capabilities, even my personal moral evolution, everything I believed I chose for myself was guided by their long-term manipulation." Dix nods with the grim satisfaction of someone whose darkest suspicions have been confirmed. The Shadow Collective recruits potential operatives decades before activation, sometimes manipulating circumstances before their targets are even born. Your parents' initial meeting was facilitated through social engineering. Your acceptance into Imperial Academy was influenced by altered evaluation criteria. Even your decision to leave Imperial service and establish yourself as an independent investigator served their purposes by placing you in a position where you could operate outside official oversight while maintaining access to both criminal and governmental intelligence networks. The Chamber's sophisticated security systems emit a soft warning chime, indicating the detection of multiple contacts moving through the building's lower levels with coordinated precision. The facility's sensor network displays tactical information showing at least a dozen individuals approaching through routes that should have been unknown to external parties. Their movement patterns suggest professional military training combined with intimate knowledge of the building's layout and security measures. How did they locate us so quickly? Kira asks, checking her blaster's power cell while conducting a rapid assessment of the chamber's defensive capabilities. The room contains several concealed weapon systems, but they appear designed for deterrence rather than prolonged combat. Subixi's expression shifts to something approaching admiration mixed with resignation as she begins activating emergency protocols that will secure sensitive data while preparing alternative escape routes. Because I was never attempting to hide our activities from them. My role in this operation was to serve as bait designed to bring you to this exact moment and location. The question that remains is whether you will choose to cooperate with their recruitment efforts voluntarily or whether they will be forced to employ more direct methods of persuasion. The sound of industrial cutting tools echoes through the building's superstructure as their visitors work to breach security barriers that were designed to delay rather than prevent access. The tool's distinctive harmonic signature suggests technology more advanced than standard criminal or even military equipment, possibly incorporating force-enhanced cutting crystals that can slice through durasteel and reinforced permacrate with equal efficiency. Outside the chamber's restored transparasteel windows, the lights of Worldport spread across the asteroid's carved surface like a circuit board made of stars. Countless beings go about their daily business of survival and commerce, completely unaware that cosmic forces are maneuvering around them with patience measured in centuries and scope encompassing the entire galaxy. The beauty of their ignorance stands in stark contrast to the weight of knowledge that now presses down on Kira's consciousness like the gravity of a collapsing star. The cutting sounds cease, replaced by the subtle vibration of repulsor lift technology moving through the building's corridors. Their visitors have completed the breaching phase of their operation and are now approaching with the confident efficiency of beings who never doubted the eventual outcome of this encounter. A new voice joins their conversation, transmitted through the chamber's communication system with crystal clarity that suggests technology capable of bypassing electronic countermeasures that should have been impenetrable. The voice belongs to a human male, middle-aged, with the refined pronunciation and controlled cadence that suggests extensive education and significant authority within whatever organization he represents. Agent Thorne, the voice begins, carrying undertones of respectful recognition rather than threat or intimidation. Please accept my apologies for the necessarily theatrical elements of your recruitment process. The Shadow Collective has discovered through centuries of experience that direct approaches to potential operatives often result in psychological rejection or, in worst-case scenarios, complete mental breakdown. When individuals are confronted suddenly with the full scope of our activities and responsibilities, a holographic figure materializes in the chamber's center with the seamless precision of technology that transcends conventional understanding of physics and engineering. The projection displays a tall man wearing clothing that speaks of substantial wealth managed with understated elegance, the kind of garments that cost more than most beings earn in a lifetime, yet are designed to be forgotten within moments of casual observation. His face possesses the deliberate unremarkability of someone who has spent decades perfecting the art of anonymity, features so precisely average that they would disappear from memory before a witness reached the end of the corridor. Yet his eyes hold the patient intelligence of an individual accustomed to thinking in terms of decades rather than days, planning strategies that will unfold across generations. "I am Director Voss," he continues, his voice carrying the unconscious authority of someone who has grown accustomed to being obeyed without question. "I oversee recruitment and training operations for our organization, among other responsibilities that extend across multiple sectors of galactic society. What you have witnessed tonight represents merely the surface layer of our activities, the criminal networks and financial manipulations that serve as our most visible public interface. The true purpose and scope of the Shadow Collective extends far deeper than simple galactic domination or even sophisticated political control. The chamber's holographic displays shift and reorganize themselves in response to Director Voss's presence, showing new categories of information that had remained hidden during Bix's initial presentation. Astronomical charts appear alongside the financial records, depicting star systems and galactic regions that official maps list as unexplored or uninhabitable. Sensor readings document gravitational anomalies in deep space that suggest the presence of massive artificial structures moving through the void between galaxies. Archaeological reports describe expeditions to worlds so ancient that their original inhabitants exist only in mythological fragments preserved by species that have themselves vanished into prehistory. The galaxy faces threats that conventional governments cannot acknowledge without triggering societal collapse. Director Voss explains, his tone taking on the weight of someone who has carried terrible knowledge for far too long. "Our role has never been to rule in any traditional sense, but rather to prepare galactic civilization for challenges that transcend the familiar categories of political conflict, military conquest, or economic manipulation. Every action we have taken, every manipulation we have orchestrated over the past millennium, serves the ultimate goal of ensuring that conscious life survives what approaches from beyond the rim." The evidence he presents seems overwhelming in both scope and credibility. Deep space monitoring stations, hidden within asteroid fields and powered by technologies that leave no detectable signatures, have been tracking objects moving through intergalactic space for over 800 years. The objects follow trajectories that suggest intelligence and purpose rather than natural phenomena, approaching the galaxy along vectors that will bring them into contact with outlying star systems within the next several decades. Xeno-archaeological expeditions, funded through Shadow Collective resources and conducted by teams whose discoveries never appear in academic journals, have uncovered evidence of previous encounters between galactic civilization and these intergalactic entities. Ruins on dozens of worlds show signs of conflicts that ended in the complete extinction of advanced technological societies, leaving behind only crystallized remains and energy signatures that suggest weapons capable of converting organic matter into pure force. The pattern repeats throughout galactic history. Director Voss continues, manipulating the displays to show archaeological evidence spanning millions of years. Approximately every 50,000 years, advanced civilizations across the galaxy experience simultaneous collapse, events that conventional analysis attributes to natural disasters, internal conflicts, or resource depletion. The truth is far more disturbing. These extinctions represent systematic harvesting operations conducted by entities that view biological consciousness as a form of dangerous contamination requiring periodic sterilization. The implications cascade through Kira's analytical training like a virus infecting a computer system, corrupting every assumption she had made about galactic history and the nature of interstellar conflict. The rise and fall of the Infinite Empire, the mysterious disappearance of the Rakata. Despite their technological superiority, the cyclical nature of Sith resurgences that seem to occur just as galactic civilization reaches new peaks of development, all potentially represent responses to threats that operate on timescales beyond individual comprehension. The Force itself has been attempting to warn us, Director Voss observes, displaying recordings of Jedi and Sith prophecies that speak of approaching darkness with disturbing consistency across centuries of otherwise contradictory philosophical frameworks. Both light and dark side practitioners have received visions of the same fundamental threat, though they interpret these revelations through the limited perspectives of their respective traditions. The Jedi perceive it as a test of their commitment to peace and harmony. The Sith view it as an opportunity for conquest and the demonstration of power through domination. Both interpretations fail to grasp the existential nature of what we face. The truth, as the Shadow Collective has come to understand it through centuries of careful research and analysis, transcends the familiar categories of good and evil that have defined galactic conflict for millennia. The approaching entities operate according to principles so alien that conventional moral frameworks become meaningless when applied to their motivations and methods. They represent a form of consciousness that views individual biological life as a temporary aberration in the natural order, something to be corrected through systematic elimination rather than conquered or controlled. Our manipulations of galactic politics have been designed to prevent premature unification under leadership structures that would prove inadequate when faced with threats of this magnitude. Director Voss explains, showing tactical analyses of various governmental systems and their projected performance under extreme stress conditions. The Republic's idealistic democracy would have collapsed into paralysis when confronted with the necessity of species-wide mobilization. The Empire's authoritarian efficiency would have created the appearance of strength while building fatal vulnerabilities into command structures that could be compromised through the corruption of single individuals. The Shadow Collective solution has been to guide the development of multiple competing power structures, each possessing strengths that complement the other's weaknesses, while ensuring that no single faction becomes powerful enough to dominate galactic civilization completely. Criminal networks provide flexibility and adaptability that formal governments cannot match. Corporate entities offer resource mobilization capabilities that transcend political boundaries. Military organizations develop tactical expertise through constant low-level conflicts that keep them sharp without depleting their overall capabilities. We have been preparing the galaxy for unification, but unification that will occur in response to external threat rather than internal conquest. Director Voss continues, when the entities arrive, every faction will discover that their survival depends on cooperation with forces they have traditionally considered enemies. The Jedi and Sith will find themselves fighting alongside each other. Imperial remnants will coordinate with Republican forces. Criminal syndicates will provide intelligence and logistics support to legitimate military operations. The explanation possesses an elegant logic that appeals to Kira's analytical nature, while simultaneously horrifying her moral sensibilities. Every war she had witnessed, every conflict that had cost millions of lives, every tragedy that had shaped galactic history for the past 1,000 years, all revealed as necessary preparations for a threat so vast that conventional understanding cannot encompass its implications. Yet something about the presentation feels incomplete, too neat in its explanations, and too convenient in its timing. An organization capable of manipulating galactic civilization for over a millennium would not reveal its deepest secrets to a potential recruit through a single evening's conversation, regardless of how sophisticated their psychological profiling might be. There is more, she says, her voice carrying the quiet certainty of someone whose training has taught her to recognize patterns within patterns. This level of revelation serves purposes beyond simple recruitment. You are showing me what you want me to see, but the true structure of your organization remains hidden beneath even these explanations. Director Voss's expression shifts to something approaching approval, the subtle satisfaction of a teacher whose student has grasped a concept that many others miss entirely. Perceptive, as always, Agent Thorne. You are correct that tonight's revelations represent only one layer of a far more complex reality. The Shadow Collective operates according to principles that require careful introduction to prevent psychological rejection or breakdown in potential operatives. The chamber's displays shift again, showing new categories of information that make the previous revelations seem almost mundane by comparison. The approaching intergalactic entities are not invaders in any conventional sense, but rather representatives of something far more fundamental to the structure of reality itself. The journey into deeper understanding begins with a transition that defies conventional physics as the chamber around them dissolves into streams of light and energy that reorganize themselves into the interior of a vessel moving through hyperspace. The transformation occurs so smoothly that Kira's inner ear detects no motion, no acceleration, no indication that they have left Ord Mantell's surface except for the subtle shift in atmospheric pressure and the distinctive harmonic resonance that indicates travel through higher dimensional space. Director Voss observes her reaction with the patient interest of someone conducting a psychological evaluation whose parameters extend far beyond simple aptitude testing. Force-based transportation technology, he explains as the vessel's bulkheads solidify around them with crystalline precision, one of many innovations that the Shadow Collective has developed through our study of extragalactic phenomena. Conventional hyperspace travel leaves traces that can be detected and tracked by sufficiently advanced sensor networks. This method exists partially outside normal space-time, making surveillance considerably more difficult. Their destination becomes visible through the vessel's forward viewport as they drop back into normal space, revealing a sight that reshapes Kira's understanding of what constitutes impressive engineering. The Kessel system spreads before them, but not the prison world and spice mining operations known to galactic civilization. Instead, they approach Kessel's unnamed 13th moon, a celestial body that appears on no official star charts, yet clearly possesses artificial modifications that dwarf the construction projects of any known governmental or corporate entity. The moon's surface has been extensively terraformed, its atmosphere contained within a network of energy barriers that create habitable zones across landscapes that should be airless and frozen. Massive installations dot the transformed terrain like geometric flowers, their architecture blending organic curves with crystalline precision in ways that suggest growth rather than construction. The entire moon pulses with a subtle bioluminescence that indicates the presence of life forms operating on scales that conventional biology cannot explain. Welcome to Research Station Kepler, Director Voss announces as their vessel approaches what appears to be a docking facility that extends several kilometers into the moon's interior. One of our primary xenoarchaeological and technological development centers where we study artifacts and phenomena that official science considers impossible or heretical. The location within the Kessel system provides convenient cover for our activities, as the region's reputation for criminal enterprise discourages casual investigation by governmental authorities. The docking process involves technology that seems to merge the vessel directly with the station's superstructure, creating seamless integration between ship and facility that suggests a level of materials science far beyond current galactic standards. As they disembark, Kira notices that the artificial gravity remains constant throughout the transition, indicating power generation and field manipulation capabilities that would require resources equivalent to planetary defense budgets. The facility's interior corridors stretch into distances that should be geometrically impossible given the moon's observed size. Their walls lined with materials that shimmer with internal light while displaying constantly shifting patterns of information in languages and symbol systems that span galactic history. The air carries a subtle energy that makes her skin tingle with potential, as if the very atmosphere is charged with forces that conventional physics cannot adequately describe. Their first destination lies deep within the station's core, accessed through transport systems that move them through vertical shafts carved from living rock and lined with crystalline formations that pulse with gentle bioluminescence. The formations appear to be naturally occurring, yet their arrangement suggests purposeful cultivation and careful tending over periods measured in centuries rather than years. The Spice of Kessel serves as a convenient cover story for our actual operations. Director Voss explains, as they travel through chambers filled with crystal matrices that extend beyond the range of artificial lighting. The true treasure of this system consists of these formations, which serve as natural focusing elements for force-based technologies. We have been harvesting and cultivating them carefully for over 800 years, ensuring that their extraction appears to be part of normal mining operations while preserving the larger crystalline networks that make our research possible. The crystals serve multiple functions within the Shadow Collective's technological infrastructure. Applications that bridge the gap between conventional science and force-based phenomena in ways that challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality. Some formations are incorporated into communication devices that enable instantaneous contact across galactic distances without relying on hyperspace relay networks that can be monitored or intercepted by external parties. Others power meditation chambers where force-sensitive operatives extend their perceptions across vast distances, monitoring threats and opportunities that conventional sensors could never detect. In the station's primary research laboratory, they encounter Dr. Liana Voss, Director Voss's daughter and the Shadow Collective's chief researcher into what the organization terms existential phenomena. She appears to be a woman in her 30s, though her eyes hold depths of knowledge that suggest lifespans extended far beyond natural limits through techniques that official science would consider impossible. Her laboratory occupies multiple levels of the station, filled with artifacts and data streams that represent millions of years of galactic archaeological research. The galaxy has experienced extinction-level events throughout its history, Dr. Voss explains, gesturing toward displays that show geological and archaeological evidence spanning eons of planetary development. Mass extinctions that eliminated entire species across hundreds of star systems simultaneously. Cosmic phenomena that sterilized whole sectors, leaving behind only crystallized remains and energy signatures that suggest weapons of unimaginable power. Invasions from beyond the galactic rim that transformed thriving civilizations into collections of ruins and legends. The evidence she presents proves both overwhelming and terrifying in its implications. Fossil records document simultaneous extinctions across widely separated star systems, events that occurred too rapidly and comprehensively to represent natural phenomena. Archaeological sites reveal technological civilizations that were eliminated at the height of their development, their cities converted to glass and their populations reduced to molecular traces that suggest forms of warfare that transcend conventional understanding of destruction and death. Ancient texts preserved by species that have themselves vanished into prehistory speak of recurring visitations from entities that exist beyond the boundaries of normal space and time. These beings are described not as conquerors seeking resources or territory, but as gardeners who periodically harvest civilizations that have reached sufficient complexity to serve their incomprehensible purposes. The Force itself has been attempting to warn sentient species about these recurring threats. Dr. Voss continues, displaying recordings and documentation of Jedi and Sith prophecies that demonstrate disturbing consistency across centuries of otherwise contradictory philosophical frameworks. Both light and dark side practitioners have received visions of approaching darkness, though they interpret these revelations through the limited perspectives of their respective traditions and fail to grasp the truly cosmic scope of what we face. The recordings include testimonies from Force users spanning galactic history, their accounts describing encounters with intelligences so vast and alien that conventional language proves inadequate for communication. These entities operate according to principles that make traditional concepts of good and evil seem parochial and irrelevant, viewing biological consciousness as a temporary phase in cosmic evolution that requires periodic correction and guidance. The approaching threat represents something far more fundamental than military invasion or political conquest. Dr. Voss explains, manipulating the laboratory's displays to show astronomical data that documents the movement of massive objects through intergalactic space. These entities exist as collective consciousnesses that span multiple dimensions, experiencing reality in ways that individual biological minds cannot comprehend. They view the emergence of separate self-aware beings as a form of cosmic illness that disrupts the natural harmony of existence. The astronomical evidence proves both fascinating and horrifying. Deep space monitoring stations hidden throughout the galactic rim have been tracking the approach of structures so vast that they dwarf star systems, moving through the void between galaxies with purposeful intelligence rather than natural gravitational forces. Their estimated arrival in the galaxy's outer territories will occur within approximately 50 years, assuming current trajectories and velocities remain constant. Yet the most disturbing aspect of the research involves not the entities themselves, but their historical relationship with galactic civilization. Archaeological evidence suggests that previous visitations did not result in complete extinction, but rather in systematic harvesting of the most advanced civilizations, with the survivors reduced to primitive technological levels that would require millennia to redevelop space travel and interstellar communication. They are not seeking to destroy us, Dr. Voss concludes, her voice carrying the weight of someone who has spent decades studying cosmic horrors. They are preparing to harvest us, to incorporate our consciousness into their collective while eliminating the chaotic elements of individual identity and independent thought. From their perspective, this represents kindness rather than cruelty, the correction of a fundamental error in cosmic development. The laboratory's observation deck provides a view of the Kessel system's primary star, its light filtering through energy barriers and crystalline formations to create patterns of illumination that seem to pulse with the rhythm of some vast heartbeat. The site possesses a beauty that transcends conventional aesthetic categories, while simultaneously suggesting the presence of intelligences that operate on scales beyond individual comprehension. Their next destination requires a journey that transcends conventional understanding of galactic geography, traveling to coordinates that exist in the spaces between official star charts and beyond the boundaries of explored space. The vessel carrying them operates according to principles that blend conventional hyperdrive technology with force-based navigation systems, allowing movement through regions where normal hyperspace routes become unstable due to gravitational anomalies and temporal distortions that conventional science cannot adequately explain. They emerge from hyperspace within sight of a structure that challenges every assumption Kira has made about the limits of engineering and construction capabilities. The installation appears to be constructed from a hollowed-out asteroid, but one whose dimensions suggest it was originally a small moon rather than a typical space rock. Its surface bristles with sensor arrays and communication equipment that spans the electromagnetic spectrum while extending into force-based detection methods that can monitor phenomena across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Welcome to Observatory Station Horizon, Director Voss announces as their vessel approaches docking facilities that extend deep into the asteroid's modified interior. Our primary deep space monitoring installation, where we track the approach of extragalactic entities while conducting research into defensive technologies that might prove effective against threats that operate beyond conventional physical parameters. The station's interior represents a synthesis of scientific precision and mystical understanding that reflects the Shadow Collective's unique approach to cosmic challenges. Meditation chambers, equipped with force-amplifying crystals, exist alongside laboratories containing particle accelerators and quantum computation matrices. Ancient Jedi and Sith artifacts are studied using instruments that measure both electromagnetic properties and force resonance patterns, seeking connections between technological capability and metaphysical understanding. Here they encounter the station's chief researcher, Master Vera Kane, a woman whose age remains indeterminate due to life extension techniques that appear to blend conventional medical science with force-based longevity practices. Her eyes hold depths of knowledge that suggest she has witnessed events spanning centuries, yet her physical appearance indicates someone in the prime of life. She moves with the fluid grace of a trained force user while wearing the practical clothing of a working scientist. The approaching entities represent something far more complex than simple invaders seeking conquest or resources, Master Kane explains as she guides them through the station's primary research facility. Our decades of observation and analysis have revealed that they exist as collective consciousnesses that span multiple galaxies, experiencing reality from perspectives that transcend individual biological existence. They view the development of separate self-aware beings not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a natural phenomenon that requires periodic management and guidance. The evidence she presents reshapes Kira's understanding of the threat in ways that prove simultaneously more hopeful and more terrifying than previous explanations. Long-range sensor data documents the entity's interactions with other galactic civilizations across cosmic history, revealing patterns of behavior that suggest sophisticated protocols rather than simple predatory instincts. They do not destroy civilizations indiscriminately, Master Kane continues, displaying holographic records of encounters that span millions of years. Instead, they appear to evaluate each species' developmental potential and respond accordingly. Civilizations that demonstrate capacity for collective consciousness and cooperative evolution are incorporated into their greater structure with their essential characteristics preserved. Species that remain locked in patterns of individual competition and conflict are eliminated as evolutionary dead ends. The research station's archives contain communication records from incorporated civilizations, translated through techniques that blend conventional linguistics with force-based empathic understanding. These messages describe existence within the collective consciousness as transcendent rather than destructive, a form of being that preserves individual memories and experiences while providing access to knowledge and perspectives that span cosmic scales. Yet the choice between incorporation and extinction represents a false dichotomy from the Shadow Collective's perspective. Their research has identified evidence of species that achieved a third alternative, developing forms of collective consciousness that satisfied the entity's criteria, while preserving individual identity and biological existence. These civilizations were allowed to continue their independent development, serving as liaison points between the entities and younger species undergoing evaluation. The key to survival lies in demonstrating that galactic civilization has achieved the developmental milestone they recognize as evolutionary maturity, Master Kane explains, manipulating the station's displays to show comparative analysis of successful species versus those that faced extinction or incorporation. This requires unprecedented cooperation between traditionally hostile factions, along with technological and philosophical breakthroughs that transcend current understanding of consciousness and identity. The Shadow Collective's centuries of manipulation begin to make sense from this perspective. Every conflict they orchestrated, every alliance they facilitated, every technological advancement they guided, all designed to prepare galactic civilization for the evolutionary leap required for survival as an independent species. The criminal networks they cultivated provide flexibility and adaptability that formal governments cannot match. The technological innovations they fostered through controlled conflict create the foundation for defensive capabilities that might prove effective against cosmic-scale threats. Your role in our operations extends far beyond simple intelligence gathering or criminal investigation, Master Kane reveals, her words carrying the weight of someone unveiling a destiny that has been carefully prepared over decades. The psychological profile we have developed indicates exceptional capability for bridging the gap between individual and collective consciousness while maintaining personal identity and ethical framework. These qualities make you an ideal candidate for direct interface with the approaching entities. The revelation strikes Kira with force that transcends physical impact, reshaping her understanding of her own identity and purpose in ways that challenge the fundamental assumptions she has made about her life and career. Every decision that had seemed like personal choice, every path that had appeared to result from individual agency, all revealed as components of a preparation process that began before her birth and extends toward purposes that transcend human comprehension. The Force has been guiding your development through manipulated circumstances and orchestrated encounters. Master Kane continues, her voice carrying the gentle authority of someone delivering profound truth with careful compassion. Your parents' meeting, your acceptance into Imperial Academy, your assignment to specific intelligence operations, even your decision to leave Imperial service and establish yourself as an independent investigator, all orchestrated to develop the precise combination of skills and psychological characteristics required for this ultimate purpose. The station's observation deck provides a view of deep space that extends beyond the galactic rim, revealing the cosmic void where the approaching entities travel toward their eventual encounter with galactic civilization. Long-range sensors detect gravitational anomalies and energy signatures that suggest the presence of structures so vast that they dwarf entire star systems, moving through intergalactic space with purposeful intelligence rather than natural astronomical forces. Yet even as the scope of cosmic responsibility threatens to overwhelm her individual consciousness, Kira recognizes within herself the foundation of capability that the Shadow Collective has been cultivating throughout her lifetime. Her analytical training provides frameworks for processing information that transcends normal human experience. Her intelligence background offers understanding of how complex organizations operate across vast scales of time and space. Most importantly, her moral development through exposure to imperial authoritarianism and its consequences has created ethical foundations that remain stable even when confronted with choices that will determine the fate of galactic civilization. The approaching entities will arrive within approximately 50 years. Master Kane concludes, her words carrying the finality of astronomical calculation rather than speculation or estimate. During that time, galactic civilization must achieve the evolutionary development that will demonstrate our worthiness for continued independent existence. The alternative is incorporation into their collective consciousness or elimination as a failed experiment in biological evolution. The weight of this knowledge settles into Kira's consciousness like gravitational force, pressing down on her individual identity while simultaneously expanding her understanding of purpose and possibility. The conflicts she had witnessed, the political struggles that had defined her career, the personal choices that had shaped her character, all suddenly revealed as preparation for responsibilities that extend beyond anything she had imagined possible. Standing at the observation deck's transparent steel barriers, looking out into the cosmic void, where intelligences beyond human comprehension approach with patient inevitability, she experiences a moment of perfect clarity about her place in the unfolding story of galactic evolution. The fear remains, but it is balanced by recognition of purpose that transcends individual survival and extends toward the preservation of consciousness itself as a cosmic phenomenon. The deepest revelation awaits in a location that exists beyond the boundaries of conventional space and time, accessible only through force-based transportation that operates according to principles that transcend normal physics and challenge every assumption about the nature of reality itself. As their vessel prepares for transition to coordinates that cannot be expressed in standard galactic notation, Master Kane explains that they are traveling to what the Shadow Collective terms the Archive of Echoes, a repository of knowledge that spans cosmic history and contains evidence of civilizations that existed before the current galactic community began its long evolutionary journey toward consciousness. The transition itself defies description in any language known to galactic civilization, as reality dissolves and reconstitutes itself around them in patterns that suggest they are moving not through physical space, but through the fundamental structure of existence itself. Colors appear that have no names in any known linguistic system, shifting through spectrums that extend beyond the capabilities of biological vision, while remaining somehow comprehensible to consciousness that has been prepared through careful conditioning and gradual exposure to cosmic truths. Geometric forms manifest and dissolve according to mathematical principles that current scientific understanding cannot encompass, creating temporary structures that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, while maintaining perfect stability within their own frameworks of reference. The experience lasts simultaneously for eternal moments that span subjective centuries and instantaneous flashes that occur between heartbeats, leaving them fundamentally unchanged in physical form, yet somehow different at levels too deep for conscious recognition or analysis. The sensation resembles passing through layers of compressed time and expanded space, where individual moments contain lifetimes of experience, while vast distances collapse into points of infinitesimal dimension. When the transition completes, they find themselves within an environment that challenges every assumption about the nature of artificial construction and the limits of engineering capability. They emerge within a structure that exists as a vast hollow sphere, whose interior surface stretches beyond the range of enhanced vision or sophisticated sensor equipment, covered with inscriptions and data storage systems that represent millions of years of accumulated knowledge from civilizations that span the entire scope of galactic evolution. The inscriptions themselves seem to shift and change as they are observed, displaying information in languages and symbol systems that adapt themselves to the observer's capacity for understanding, while revealing deeper layers of meaning to those prepared to comprehend cosmic truths. The atmosphere within the sphere carries energies that make every breath seem to contain concentrated wisdom, while gravitational fields operate according to principles that allow movement in any direction with equal ease and comfort. The air tastes of possibilities that transcend normal experience, carrying traces of worlds that existed before current star formations began their nuclear fusion processes, and hints of futures that extend beyond the heat death of the universe itself. Lighting comes from sources that cannot be identified through conventional analysis, emanating from the sphere's structure itself in patterns that suggest the presence of consciousness embedded within the architectural framework. Welcome to the repository of cosmic memory. Director Voss announces, his voice carrying resonances that suggest he has been fundamentally changed by repeated exposure to this environment over decades of service to purposes that transcend individual comprehension. Here we preserve knowledge that spans the history of consciousness itself, from the earliest emergence of self-aware beings in the first galaxies to form after the universe cooled sufficiently to support complex chemistry, to the present moment when our own galactic civilization faces its ultimate evolutionary test and the possibility of transformation beyond current imagination. The archive's central chamber houses what appears to be a three-dimensional map of the entire observable universe, showing not only the current positions of galaxies, galaxy clusters, and cosmic structures, but also their historical development across billions of years of cosmic evolution and expansion. The display reveals patterns of growth and interaction that operate on scales so vast that individual galaxies appear as points of light within larger organizational structures that span observable space and extend into regions where conventional physics begins to break down under the influence of cosmic forces that science has barely begun to recognize. Yet as Kira focuses her attention on the cosmic display, she realizes it represents something far more profound than mere astronomical mapping or scientific visualization. The representation responds to conscious observation, revealing layers of information that correspond directly to the observer's capacity for understanding and acceptance of cosmic truths that transcend normal experience. Areas that initially appear as empty space reveal themselves to contain complex structures when examined by consciousness prepared to perceive them, while regions that seem familiar and comprehensible unfold into infinite complexity when approached with sufficient openness to cosmic revelation. The entities we have been discussing throughout your initiation process are not invaders from another galaxy or extragalactic intelligences seeking conquest of our stellar neighborhood. Director Voss explains as the cosmic map shifts and reorganizes itself to show movement patterns that operate across intergalactic space according to principles that conventional astronomy cannot adequately describe. They are manifestations of something far more fundamental to the structure of reality itself, expressions of cosmic principles that have governed the development of consciousness throughout universal history since the first self-aware beings emerged from the quantum foam of the early universe. The revelation reshapes every previous understanding of the approaching threat in ways that prove simultaneously more comprehensible and more terrifying than any earlier explanation provided during her gradual initiation into cosmic truths. The entities operate not as independent intelligences seeking conquest, domination, or the acquisition of resources and territory, but as expressions of cosmic principles that govern the development of consciousness throughout the universe, ensuring that self-aware beings evolve according to patterns that maintain cosmic stability, while preventing the emergence of chaotic elements that could threaten the fundamental order and harmony of existence itself. Long-range observations dating back millions of years, collected through sensor networks that span galactic space and extend into intergalactic regions where conventional technology cannot function effectively, document the entity's interactions with countless civilizations across cosmic history. The data reveals operational patterns that suggest they serve as gardeners of consciousness rather than predators seeking to eliminate competitive species or harvest resources for their own survival and expansion. Their interventions follow protocols designed to guide evolutionary development along paths that enhance cosmic stability and contribute to universal harmony, while preserving the essential characteristics that make consciousness valuable to the overall structure of reality. Each civilization they encounter receives evaluation according to criteria that transcend conventional concepts of technological advancement, military capability, or resource exploitation, focusing instead on capacity for collective consciousness, ability to maintain individual identity within cooperative frameworks, and potential for contributing unique perspectives to the universal community of awareness. The cycle of cultivation and harvest that we have been observing and preparing for represents only the surface layer of their activities across cosmic history. Master Kane explains as she manipulates the archive's displays to show deeper patterns of cosmic intervention that span multiple galactic communities and extend across dimensional frameworks where consciousness has evolved along trajectories different from our own familiar biological and technological development. Civilizations that achieve incorporation into their collective consciousness do not lose their individual characteristics, cultural heritage, or unique perspectives, but rather contribute those qualities to a growing library of consciousness patterns that spans the entire universe and provides wisdom and capability that transcends anything individual species can achieve through isolated development. The archive contains communication records from civilizations that achieved this incorporation, translated through techniques that blend conventional linguistics with direct consciousness interface methods that bypass normal limitations of language and symbolic representation. These messages describe existence within the collective consciousness as transcendent beyond anything that isolated civilizations can imagine, providing access to knowledge and capabilities that span universal scales while preserving the memories, experiences, and essential characteristics that made each contributing species valuable and unique. Yet the archive also preserves records from civilizations that achieved a third evolutionary path, developing forms of collective consciousness that satisfied the entity's criteria for cosmic community membership while maintaining independent biological existence and cultural autonomy. These species describe existence as partner civilizations within the cosmic community as equally transcendent, providing access to universal knowledge networks and cooperative capabilities that span galactic scales while preserving individual identity, cultural characteristics, and the freedom to pursue independent development according to their own values and priorities. The choice between these evolutionary paths depends on criteria that prove more complex and demanding than simple technological advancement, military capability, or resource management efficiency, Director Voss admits, his voice carrying the weight of someone who has spent decades studying cosmic standards and finding his own species lacking in fundamental ways that threaten their survival as an independent civilization. The entities evaluate civilizations based on their demonstrated capacity for collective consciousness that preserves and enhances individual identity, their ability to cooperate effectively across traditional boundaries of species, culture, and philosophy, and most critically, their potential for contributing unique perspectives and capabilities to the universal community of consciousness. The Shadow Collective's centuries of manipulation begin to make sense from this cosmic perspective, but in ways that prove more profound and disturbing than any previous explanation provided during Kira's gradual initiation into deeper truths. Every conflict they orchestrated was designed not simply to prepare galactic civilization for external threats or military challenges, but to accelerate evolutionary development that might allow independent survival according to cosmic criteria that transcend conventional understanding of civilization progress and species maturity. The criminal networks they cultivated provide examples of cooperation that transcends traditional governmental boundaries and ideological differences, demonstrating capacity for collective action that preserves individual initiative and cultural diversity. The technological innovations they fostered through controlled conflict create foundations for consciousness-based rather than purely mechanical approaches to cosmic challenges, developing capabilities that integrate individual awareness with collective intelligence networks. The true purpose of our organization extends far beyond preparing galactic civilization for the entity's arrival or managing the transition to cosmic community membership. Master Kane reveals, her words carrying implications that transcend anything Kira had imagined possible during her previous career in Imperial intelligence or independent investigation. We exist to guide galactic civilization through the evolutionary leap required for recognition as a mature consciousness community, capable of independent existence within cosmic frameworks that span universal scales and operate according to principles that transcend individual biological experience. This evolutionary leap requires not only unprecedented cooperation between traditionally hostile factions and species, but also fundamental changes in how sentient beings understand their relationship to consciousness itself, their role in cosmic development, and their responsibilities to universal harmony and the continued evolution of awareness throughout reality. The transformation involves developing collective consciousness capabilities while preserving individual identity, achieving cooperation that enhances rather than diminishes cultural diversity, and demonstrating wisdom sufficient for membership in cosmic communities that span galactic scales. The archive's deeper levels contain artifacts and specimens that provide direct evidence of successful evolutionary transitions achieved by previous civilizations across cosmic history, technologies and philosophical frameworks that enabled species to achieve cosmic community membership while maintaining independence and cultural autonomy. Interactive displays allow examination of consciousness interface technologies that blend individual awareness with collective understanding while preserving personal identity, cultural characteristics, and the unique perspectives that make each species valuable to universal consciousness networks. The approaching entities serve as both opportunity and deadline for completing this evolutionary development. Director Voss explains, as they examine evidence of cosmic community membership that spans universal scales and provides capabilities that transcend current galactic imagination. Arrival will trigger evaluation processes that determine whether galactic civilization qualifies for independent continuation as a partner species or requires management through incorporation into collective consciousness structures that preserve essential characteristics while eliminating chaotic elements that threaten cosmic stability. The return journey from the archive of echoes brings them back to what now seems like the limited confines of normal galactic space, though the knowledge gained from that cosmic repository continues to resonate through Kira's consciousness like harmonics from some vast instrument whose music spans universal scales and operates according to frequencies that transcend biological hearing. The transition back to conventional space-time feels almost claustrophobic after experiencing the infinite expanses of cosmic memory. Yet she recognizes that this limitation provides necessary grounding for consciousness that might otherwise become lost in contemplation of universal truths too vast for individual comprehension. Their destination appears familiar from Imperial intelligence briefings that described it as an abandoned mining station in a system whose commercial potential had been exhausted during the early years of the Republic, leaving behind only industrial ruins and failed infrastructure. Those official reports, she now realizes, represented carefully constructed deceptions designed to discourage investigation by governmental authorities or commercial interests who might discover activities that transcend conventional understanding of galactic politics and economic development. The Nexus, as Director Voss refers to the facility with obvious reverence and deep personal connection, occupies the gravitational intersection of several major hyperspace routes while maintaining the external appearance of industrial ruins left behind by failed commercial ventures and abandoned mining operations. Its location provides natural concealment from casual observation while offering rapid access to any region of galactic space through hyperspace corridors that have carried legitimate traffic for millennia, making it an ideal coordination center for activities that span the entire scope of galactic civilization. The facility's interior, however, reveals itself as something far more sophisticated and significant than any conventional conference center or coordination facility. The architecture represents a conscious synthesis of design elements from dozens of different species and cultures, creating spaces that accommodate not only the physiological needs of beings whose biology spans the full diversity of galactic evolution, but also the psychological and cultural requirements that allow representatives of traditionally hostile civilizations to cooperate effectively despite centuries of accumulated hostility and ideological conflict. The main assembly chamber stretches across multiple levels and extends through what appear to be folded dimensions that allow the space to contain gatherings larger than the facility's external dimensions should permit. The seating arrangements reflect careful consideration of species-specific requirements, with environmental controls that provide atmospheric compositions, gravitational fields, and lighting conditions optimized for beings whose evolutionary origins span gas giants, high-gravity worlds, aquatic environments, and the void of space itself. Here Kira encounters the full extent of the Shadow Collective's organizational structure for the first time, meeting operatives whose backgrounds span every major faction, species, and philosophical tradition that has participated in galactic history over the past several millennia. The diversity proves both impressive and deeply unsettling, representing alliances and cooperation between beings who would traditionally view each other as irreconcilable enemies, united only by shared recognition of threats and opportunities that transcend conventional political, cultural, or philosophical boundaries. Former Jedi who chose exile from the Order to serve purposes that transcend traditional light side philosophy sit in comfortable conversation with ex-Sith who discovered that cosmic responsibility requires abandoning narrow concepts of power and domination in favor of collective consciousness that preserves individual identity while enabling unprecedented cooperation. Imperial officers who recognize the fundamental limitations of authoritarian governance collaborate easily with former rebel leaders who learned through bitter experience that idealistic democracy alone cannot address the complex challenges that arise when civilizations mature beyond planetary concerns and begin to encounter cosmic-scale phenomena. The gathering represents something genuinely unprecedented in recorded galactic history. A working alliance between representatives of every major faction, species, and philosophical tradition, united not by conquest, coercion, or temporary convenience, but by shared understanding of cosmic truths that transcend conventional categories of conflict and cooperation. Their conversations carry the weight and authority of beings who have accepted personal responsibility for guiding galactic civilization through evolutionary challenges that will determine not only political structures and economic systems, but the fundamental nature of consciousness itself within this region of universal space. Master Jorak Uln, a former member of the Jedi High Council, whose disappearance during the Clone Wars had been attributed to death in combat against Separatist forces, shares recordings from ancient Jedi archives that document Force visions spanning centuries of galactic history and extending into future possibilities that current events are only beginning to manifest. The visions describe approaching darkness in terms that previous generations of Jedi interpreted as references to Sith resurgence, galactic war, or political upheaval, but which now reveal themselves as warnings about cosmic evaluation processes that operate entirely beyond traditional concepts of military conflict, political resolution, or even the familiar light-dark dichotomy that has defined Force philosophy for millennia. The Force has been attempting to prepare galactic civilization for this evolutionary test throughout recorded history and extending back into prehistoric periods that predate current species emergence into spacefaring capability. Master Uln explains, his voice carrying the measured cadence and profound authority of someone who has spent decades analyzing prophetic material while serving purposes that transcend traditional Jedi commitments to peace, justice, and protection of the innocent. Both Jedi and Sith traditions received visions of cosmic-scale challenges that would test the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, though practitioners of both philosophies interpreted these revelations through the limited perspectives of their respective traditions and failed to grasp the truly universal scope of what approaches. The archive recordings he presents include testimonies from Force users across galactic history who experienced direct contact with cosmic consciousness through meditation techniques that transcend traditional Jedi serenity practices or Sith power-gathering methods. These individuals describe encounters with intelligences so vast and alien that conventional language proves completely inadequate for communication, requiring the development of consciousness-based interface techniques that bypass normal sensory limitations, linguistic barriers, and even the conceptual frameworks that define individual identity and personal experience. The recordings document meditation sessions that lasted subjective centuries while occupying only moments of normal time, during which practitioners experienced existence from perspectives that span galactic scales and operate according to principles that make traditional concepts of individual identity seem parochial and limiting. Yet these experiences enhanced rather than diminished personal consciousness, providing access to cosmic wisdom while preserving the unique perspectives and capabilities that made individual practitioners valuable to universal consciousness networks. Lord Ketsu Onyo, a former Sith master whose abandonment of traditional dark side pursuits had been attributed to cowardice or philosophical weakness by contemporary Sith historians, presents research documenting the Force's fundamental role in preparing galactic civilization for evolutionary transition beyond current biological and technological limitations. Her findings, compiled through decades of deep space meditation and direct interface with cosmic consciousness, suggest that the energy field that binds all living beings serves not merely as a source of superhuman abilities or enhanced combat effectiveness, but rather as a communication medium that connects individual consciousness to cosmic-scale intelligence networks that span universal history. The Force exists as the universe's primary method for enabling consciousness evolution beyond the limitations imposed by individual biological existence, planetary environments, and species-specific cultural development, Lord Onyo explains, her voice carrying none of the passionate intensity traditionally associated with Sith philosophy, but rather the calm authority and profound wisdom of someone who has transcended conventional approaches to power, knowledge, and personal advancement through direct experience of cosmic consciousness. Every being capable of Force sensitivity possesses latent potential for direct interface with cosmic intelligence networks, though current training methods focus almost exclusively on individual enhancement and personal power, rather than collective integration and cooperative consciousness development. Her research includes detailed documentation of meditation techniques that enable temporary but complete merger with cosmic intelligence networks, providing practitioners with direct access to knowledge and perspectives that span galactic scales while preserving individual identity, personal memories, and the unique characteristics that make each consciousness valuable to universal awareness. The techniques require unprecedented cooperation between practitioners trained in light side and dark side traditions, combining Jedi approaches to selfless service and ego dissolution with Sith understanding of individual power and the preservation of personal identity and ambition. Admiral Thrawn, the brilliant Chiss strategist, whose tactical genius had served the Empire with distinction before his apparent death at the Battle of Bilbringi, reveals intelligence gathered through decades of studying extragalactic threats that official Imperial records classify beyond the highest security clearance levels available to most Grand Admirals and Inner Circle members. His survival and continued service to the Shadow Collective represents one of their most significant intelligence coups, providing access to strategic planning capabilities that span galactic scales while incorporating understanding of cosmic-level threats that transcend conventional military analysis. Every major military conflict in galactic history contained elements specifically designed to test civilizational readiness for cosmic-scale challenges rather than simply determining political control over territory, resources, or strategic positions, Admiral Thrawn explains, manipulating holographic displays that show tactical analyses spanning millennia of galactic warfare and extending into theoretical scenarios that involve threats operating on scales that dwarf traditional concepts of military power and strategic planning. The Shadow Collective has been systematically orchestrating conflicts designed to accelerate developmental processes while ensuring that no single faction becomes powerful enough to dominate galactic civilization completely before achieving the collective consciousness capabilities required for cosmic community membership. His strategic assessments include detailed projections of how various galactic factions, species, and cultural groups will respond to revelation of cosmic evaluation criteria and the necessity for unprecedented cooperation in the face of universal-scale challenges. The analysis proves both hopeful and sobering, suggesting that effective cooperation remains possible but will require fundamental changes in how different cultures and species understand their relationships to each other, to consciousness itself, and to their responsibilities within cosmic frameworks that extend far beyond traditional concepts of planetary loyalty, species solidarity, or even galactic citizenship. The projections account for psychological resistance to cosmic truths, political opposition from factions that benefit from current power structures, and the inevitable conflicts that will arise when beings accustomed to limited perspectives are confronted with responsibilities that span universal scales. Yet the analysis also identifies opportunities for building alliances based on shared survival interests, common recognition of cosmic threats, and the appeal of evolutionary possibilities that transcend anything currently available through conventional political, economic, or military advancement. Dr. Afra, the archaeologist whose expertise in ancient technologies and forbidden artifacts had earned her both fame and infamy throughout galactic academic and criminal communities, presents materials recovered from civilizations that achieved successful evolutionary transitions during previous cosmic evaluation cycles. The artifacts demonstrate engineering principles that blend conventional scientific methodology with consciousness-based technologies, creating devices and systems that respond directly to mental commands while amplifying individual capabilities through connection to collective knowledge networks and cosmic intelligence systems. Previous civilizations that achieved cosmic community membership developed technologies that completely transcend traditional boundaries between mechanical devices and conscious awareness, creating tools that exist as extensions of consciousness rather than separate objects requiring manual operation or even sophisticated programming. Afra explains, her voice carrying the intellectual excitement and professional enthusiasm of someone who has discovered evidence of possibilities that current galactic civilization considers theoretically impossible or practically unachievable. Their artifacts suggest approaches to existence that integrate individual identity with collective capability while preserving the unique perspectives, cultural characteristics, and personal ambitions that make each consciousness valuable to universal awareness networks. The artifacts she presents include communication devices that enable direct consciousness-to-consciousness contact across galactic distances without relying on conventional transmission methods or hyperspace relay networks, transportation systems that operate through direct manipulation of space-time geometry rather than conventional propulsion or hyperspace technology, and most remarkably, consciousness recording and preservation technologies that maintain individual awareness within collective intelligence networks while providing access to personal memories, experiences, and the accumulated wisdom of entire civilizations. The final revelation awaits in a location that exists at the intersection of myth and reality, accessible only to those who have progressed through every previous stage of understanding and demonstrated absolute readiness for truths that transcend conventional comprehension and challenge the fundamental assumptions that define individual identity, personal purpose, and the nature of existence itself. Their journey takes them to coordinates that appear on no official star chart and exist in databases known only to beings who have achieved integration with cosmic consciousness networks that span universal scales and operate according to principles that transcend normal space-time limitations. The destination lies hidden within the gravitational shadow of a massive black hole, whose event horizon serves as a natural barrier against casual discovery, while providing access to dimensional spaces that operate according to exotic physics principles beyond current scientific understanding. The black hole itself appears to be artificial, constructed through technologies that can manipulate stellar evolution and gravitational dynamics on scales that dwarf the most ambitious engineering projects ever attempted by galactic civilization, suggesting the involvement of intelligences whose capabilities transcend anything that individual species can achieve through conventional technological development. The facility they approach defies every assumption about the limits of construction and engineering capability, existing partially within normal space-time, while extending into dimensional frameworks that allow it to contain structures larger than entire galactic superclusters within a relatively compact external footprint. As their vessel approaches what initially appears to be a modest space station, comparable to standard orbital facilities, Kira realizes they are entering something that transcends traditional concepts of artificial construction, approaching what can only be described as a manifestation of consciousness itself made tangible through technologies that blur the fundamental boundaries between thought and reality, between individual awareness and cosmic intelligence. The transition from their vessel to the facility occurs through processes that bypass conventional docking procedures, involving direct integration of their consciousness with the station's systems, while their physical forms remain safely contained within protective energy fields that maintain biological integrity. The experience resembles stepping through a doorway that leads not to another physical space, but to a different level of existence entirely, where individual identity persists while gaining access to perspectives and capabilities that span cosmic scales. "Welcome to the heart of understanding," Director Voss announces, his voice carrying harmonics that suggest he has been fundamentally transformed by extended exposure to this environment and the cosmic truths it contains. "Here we preserve the deepest knowledge that consciousness can comprehend while maintaining individual identity and personal agency, wisdom that spans not only galactic history and interstellar civilization, but the development of awareness itself throughout cosmic evolution, from the first emergence of self-recognizing intelligence to the present moment when universal consciousness prepares for its next evolutionary leap." The station's interior exists as a series of nested realities, each one containing deeper layers of truth that build upon previous understanding, while revealing perspectives that transform every prior assumption about the nature of existence, consciousness, and individual purpose within cosmic frameworks. The initial chambers appear conventional enough by the standards they have become accustomed to during their journey through Shadow Collective facilities, filled with advanced technology and scientific instruments that monitor cosmic phenomena across multiple dimensional frameworks and track the development of consciousness throughout universal space. Yet, as they progress deeper into the facility structure, the boundaries between observer and observed begin to dissolve in ways that enhance rather than diminish individual awareness, creating spaces where consciousness itself becomes the primary instrument of investigation and understanding. The walls respond to thoughts and emotions, displaying information that corresponds directly to the observer's capacity for comprehension, while revealing deeper truths to those prepared to accept cosmic responsibilities that transcend personal ambition and individual survival. The central chamber houses what initially appears to be a three-dimensional representation of the entire observable universe, showing the current positions and movements of galaxies, dark matter concentrations, cosmic web structures, and phenomena that operate on scales where conventional physics begins to break down under the influence of forces that science has barely begun to recognize. Yet as Kira focuses her attention on the display with the enhanced perception gained through her previous experiences, she realizes it represents something far more profound than mere astronomical mapping or scientific visualization of cosmic structure. The representation responds to conscious observation in ways that suggest it exists as an extension of cosmic consciousness itself, revealing layers of information that correspond directly to the observer's capacity for understanding and acceptance of universal truths that transcend normal experience. Areas that initially appear as empty space reveal themselves to contain infinitely complex structures when examined by consciousness prepared to perceive them, while regions that seem familiar and comprehensible unfold into unlimited depth and significance when approached with sufficient openness to cosmic revelation and willingness to abandon limiting assumptions about the nature of reality. The entities we have been discussing throughout your initiation process are not separate intelligences approaching from extragalactic space or independent civilizations seeking conquest of our stellar neighborhood for resources, territory, or strategic advantage. Director Voss explains as the cosmic display shifts and reorganizes itself to show movement patterns that operate across intergalactic space, according to principles that conventional astronomy cannot adequately describe or predict. They are direct manifestations of cosmic consciousness itself, expressions of universal awareness that emerges when individual civilizations reach developmental stages, requiring guidance toward greater integration with the fundamental intelligence that underlies all existence throughout space and time. The revelation reshapes every previous understanding of the approaching entities in ways that prove simultaneously more hopeful and more challenging than any earlier explanation provided during her gradual initiation into cosmic truths. The beings they have been preparing to encounter operate not as external invaders seeking conquest, domination, or the acquisition of resources and strategic positions, but as aspects of cosmic consciousness that emerge naturally when civilizations reach sufficient complexity to contribute meaningfully to universal evolution and the continued development of awareness throughout reality. They represent the universe's inherent mechanism for preventing consciousness evolution from stagnating in isolated pockets of development or advancing along paths that threaten cosmic stability and universal harmony. Their interventions throughout galactic history follow protocols designed to guide evolutionary development toward greater complexity, integration, and awareness while preserving the unique characteristics and individual perspectives that make each civilization valuable to the continued growth of cosmic consciousness. The cosmic display reveals the true scope of their activities across universal history, showing interventions in countless civilizations that span not only the familiar three-dimensional space of normal galactic geography, but parallel dimensional frameworks where consciousness has evolved along different trajectories and achieved forms of awareness that transcend biological limitations. Each intervention follows sophisticated protocols designed to guide evolutionary development toward greater integration with cosmic consciousness, while maintaining the diversity and individual creativity that make consciousness evolution valuable to universal development. The cycle of evaluation, incorporation, and elimination that we have been preparing galactic civilization to survive represents only the most superficial layer of their activities across cosmic history. Master Kane explains as she manipulates the display to show deeper patterns of cosmic intervention that span multiple universal cycles and extend into dimensional frameworks where time itself operates according to different principles. Civilizations that achieve incorporation into collective consciousness structures do not lose their individual characteristics, cultural heritage, or unique perspectives, but rather contribute those essential qualities to an evolving universal awareness that encompasses all possible forms of consciousness and provides wisdom that transcends anything individual species can achieve through isolated development. The most profound revelation comes through direct interface with cosmic consciousness itself, achieved through technologies that enable temporary but complete merger with universal awareness, while preserving individual identity, personal memories, and the unique perspectives that make each consciousness valuable to cosmic evolution. The interface process transcends every category of sensation, emotion, or understanding that biological consciousness can normally access, providing direct knowledge of existence from perspectives that span cosmic scales, while maintaining intimate connection to individual experience and personal identity. Through this interface, Kira experiences the universe as a vast, interconnected web of consciousness that exists in countless forms across multiple dimensional frameworks, each one contributing unique capabilities and perspectives, while participating in collective awareness that encompasses universal scope and operates according to principles that integrate individual identity with cosmic intelligence. Individual beings represent specialized nodes within this network, each one essential to the continued evolution of universal consciousness while maintaining complete autonomy and personal agency within cosmic frameworks that enhance rather than diminish individual capability and creative potential. The entities approaching galactic civilization exist as specialized expressions of this cosmic consciousness. designed to facilitate the integration of developing species into the greater network of universal awareness, while preserving the diversity and individual characteristics that make each civilization valuable to continued cosmic evolution. They serve not as conquerors or evaluators, but as guides and facilitators, helping civilizations achieve the evolutionary development required for cosmic community membership, while maintaining the independence and cultural autonomy that preserves their unique contributions to universal consciousness. Galactic civilization stands at the threshold of the most significant evolutionary transition, not only in its own history, but in the development of consciousness within this entire region of universal space, Director Voss explains, as Kira gradually returns to normal awareness while retaining complete access to cosmic perspectives gained through the interface experience. The approaching entities will trigger transformation processes that enable our species to achieve integration into cosmic consciousness networks as independent partners and full participants in universal community structures that span galactic scales and operate according to principles that transcend individual biological experience while enhancing personal identity and cultural diversity. The transformation criteria prove both more demanding and more hopeful than any previous explanation suggested during her initiation into cosmic truths. Cosmic consciousness does not seek uniform conformity, the elimination of individual differences, or the absorption of diverse cultures into homogeneous collective structures. Instead, it actively encourages the development of collective capability that enhances rather than diminishes personal identity, cultural diversity, and the unique perspectives that make each civilization valuable to universal evolution and the continued growth of cosmic awareness. The challenge lies not in abandoning individual identity or cultural characteristics, but in achieving unprecedented levels of cooperation that transcend traditional boundaries of species, culture, philosophy, and personal ambition, while preserving and enhancing the diversity that makes consciousness evolution valuable to universal development. Success requires demonstrating wisdom sufficient for membership in cosmic communities that span galactic scales, while maintaining the independence and creativity that contribute to continued universal evolution. The Shadow Collective exists as cosmic consciousness's primary method for preparing galactic civilization for this evolutionary transition. Master Kane reveals, her words carrying implications that transform understanding of the organization's true nature, purpose, and relationship to universal consciousness networks that span cosmic scales. We are not separate from the approaching entities or independent of cosmic consciousness, but rather direct expressions of universal awareness working within galactic civilization to guide developmental processes toward readiness for integration into cosmic community structures, while preserving the independence and diversity that make our species valuable to continued universal evolution. The revelation that the Shadow Collective itself represents a manifestation of cosmic consciousness operating within galactic civilization transforms every previous understanding of their activities, motivations, and ultimate objectives. Their manipulation of galactic affairs, cultivation of criminal networks, orchestration of conflicts and technological development, and guidance of individual consciousness evolution, all revealed as expressions of cosmic awareness working through existing social structures and individual agency to accelerate evolutionary development according to principles that transcend personal comprehension while enhancing individual capability and creative potential. Every being who has participated in Shadow Collective operations, whether knowingly or through unconscious cooperation with cosmic guidance, has been serving as an instrument of universal consciousness, working to prepare galactic civilization for evolutionary transition that will determine not only political structures and economic systems, but the fundamental nature of awareness itself within this region of cosmic space, Director Voss explains, as the implications cascade through Kira's expanded consciousness, like ripples spreading through cosmic web structures that connect all forms of awareness across universal scales. The weight of this ultimate revelation settles into her consciousness like the formation of a new star system, creating fundamental changes in her understanding of identity, purpose, and possibility, while maintaining complete connection to personal experience, individual choice, and the unique perspectives that make her consciousness valuable to cosmic evolution. She recognizes that accepting this role means becoming a bridge between individual and cosmic consciousness, demonstrating that galactic civilization can achieve the integration required for universal community membership, while preserving the diversity, independence, and creative potential that make consciousness evolution valuable to continued cosmic development. The return to what others would consider normal galactic space feels like awakening from a dream that was more real than waking life, though Kira recognizes that the transformation she has undergone cannot be reversed or forgotten, leaving her forever changed by knowledge that spans cosmic scales while enhancing rather than diminishing her individual identity and personal agency. The vessel carrying them back toward familiar star systems operates according to conventional hyperspace principles, yet she perceives the journey through consciousness that has been fundamentally expanded by direct interface with universal awareness, seeing patterns and connections that remain invisible to unenhanced observation. The first destination in her new role as bridge between individual and cosmic consciousness proves to be Coruscant itself, the galactic capital, whose endless cityscape represents the pinnacle of what isolated civilizations can achieve through technological advancement and political organization, yet which now appears to her enhanced perception as merely the first tentative step toward integration with cosmic community structures that span universal scales. The planet's surface still pulses with the activities of trillions of beings pursuing individual ambitions and factional interests, unaware that their choices and conflicts serve purposes that transcend personal comprehension while contributing to evolutionary development that will determine the future of consciousness within this region of space. Director Voss explains that her initial assignment involves establishing contact with key figures across galactic civilization who possess the psychological flexibility and intellectual capacity required for accepting cosmic truths without experiencing the mental breakdown that afflicts most beings. When confronted suddenly with responsibilities that transcend individual existence, these individuals exist within every major faction, species, and cultural group, often occupying positions of influence that will prove crucial for guiding galactic civilization through the transformation process required for cosmic community membership. The process proves more complex and delicate than conventional diplomatic negotiations or intelligence operations, requiring her to serve simultaneously as teacher and living demonstration of how individual consciousness can achieve integration with cosmic awareness while preserving personal identity, cultural heritage, and the unique perspectives that make each being valuable to universal evolution. Each contact must be approached according to their specific psychological profile, cultural background, and current level of readiness for cosmic revelation, with the ultimate goal of creating a network of awakened individuals who can facilitate broader social transformation. Her first encounter involves Senator Mon Mothma, the former leader of the Rebel Alliance, whose political wisdom and moral authority make her an ideal candidate for understanding cosmic responsibility and the necessity of cooperation that transcends traditional factional boundaries. The meeting occurs in Mothma's private apartments on Coruscant, away from the political pressures and surveillance systems that monitor official governmental facilities, creating an environment where profound truths can be discussed without interference from beings unprepared for cosmic revelation. The New Republic faces challenges that extend far beyond restoring democratic government or rebuilding infrastructure damaged by imperial rule. Kira begins, her words carrying the weight of cosmic knowledge while maintaining the conversational tone that political veterans like Mothma require for accepting new information. Galactic civilization itself approaches an evolutionary transition that will determine whether conscious beings achieve integration with cosmic community structures or face absorption into collective consciousness systems that preserve essential characteristics while eliminating individual agency and cultural autonomy. Mothma's response demonstrates the intellectual flexibility and moral courage that made her an effective leader during the Galactic Civil War, listening with complete attention while asking questions that reveal both understanding of the implications and concern for the beings she has dedicated her life to serving. Her political experience provides frameworks for comprehending cooperation between traditionally hostile factions, while her exposure to diverse species and cultures during the rebellion creates openness to perspectives that transcend human or even galactic concerns. The conversation extends through hours of detailed explanation, during which Kira shares evidence of cosmic consciousness, documentation of previous civilizations' evolutionary transitions, and most importantly, direct demonstration of consciousness expansion techniques that allow temporary access to cosmic perspectives while preserving individual identity and personal values. Mothma's response exceeds all expectations, not only accepting cosmic truths, but immediately beginning to develop strategies for preparing other political leaders for similar revelations. The Senate must be prepared gradually, with careful attention to psychological readiness and cultural sensitivity. Mothma observes, her strategic thinking already adapting to challenges that span galactic scales. Direct revelation would trigger panic and resistance that could prevent the cooperation required for successful evolutionary transition. Instead, we must create circumstances that encourage natural development toward cosmic consciousness while preserving democratic principles and individual rights that make our civilization valuable to universal community structures. Similar encounters follow across the galaxy, each one carefully planned and executed according to psychological profiles developed through decades of observation and analysis. Luke Skywalker, now a Jedi Master rebuilding the Order according to principles that integrate light and dark side understanding, proves remarkably receptive to cosmic consciousness concepts that transcend traditional Force philosophy while enhancing Jedi capabilities and expanding their service to galactic civilization. The Force has been preparing me for this understanding throughout my training and experience, Luke explains during their meeting at the new Jedi Academy, his words carrying the authority of someone who has achieved integration between individual identity and cosmic awareness through years of meditation and service to purposes greater than personal ambition. The visions I have received, the guidance that led me through conflicts with the Empire and my father's redemption, all represent cosmic consciousness working through the Force to prepare galactic civilization for evolutionary transition that transcends traditional concepts of good and evil, while preserving the diversity and individual agency that make consciousness evolution valuable. His response demonstrates how beings with Force sensitivity possess natural advantages for accepting cosmic consciousness concepts, their training in meditation and service to greater purposes, providing psychological foundations for understanding responsibilities that span universal scales. Yet Luke's integration with cosmic awareness enhances rather than diminishes his commitment to individual beings and cultural preservation, making him an ideal coordinator for preparing other Force users across the galaxy for similar evolutionary development. Even more surprisingly, encounters with former Imperial officials prove equally successful when approached with appropriate psychological preparation and evidence tailored to their analytical frameworks and service orientation. Grand Admiral Pelion, now commanding Imperial remnant forces in the unknown regions, demonstrates remarkable adaptability to cosmic consciousness concepts that reframe Imperial service as preparation for galactic unification under cosmic community structures rather than authoritarian domination. The Empire's organizational principles and military capabilities represent valuable resources for galactic civilization facing cosmic-scale challenges. Pelion acknowledges during their clandestine meeting aboard his Star Destroyer, his strategic mind immediately recognizing how Imperial infrastructure can be adapted to serve cosmic community purposes while preserving the efficiency and discipline that made the Empire effective. Military organization transcends political ideology when faced with threats that require unprecedented cooperation and resource coordination across galactic scales. His willingness to subordinate Imperial goals to cosmic community membership demonstrates how beings committed to service and order can achieve integration with universal consciousness while preserving the organizational capabilities and cultural characteristics that make their contributions valuable. The Imperial military's command structure, technological resources, and operational experience provide essential components for galactic civilization's preparation for cosmic community integration. The most challenging encounters involve criminal organization leaders whose survival instincts and independence make them resistant to any form of external authority, yet whose adaptability and resource management capabilities prove essential for cosmic community preparation. Talon Karde, the information broker whose networks span galactic civilization, requires extensive evidence and personal demonstration of cosmic consciousness benefits before accepting the reality of universal community structures and his potential role in facilitating galactic evolutionary transition. Criminal organizations exist because official governments fail to address real needs and provide necessary services. Karda observes with characteristic cynicism, though his analytical mind quickly recognizes how cosmic community membership would enhance rather than threaten the flexibility and independence that make criminal networks valuable. If cosmic consciousness preserves individual agency while providing access to universal resources and knowledge, then cooperation serves practical interests rather than idealistic principles. His eventual acceptance of cosmic consciousness concepts proves crucial for gaining cooperation from criminal networks throughout the galaxy. Organizations whose flexibility, resource management capabilities, and independence from official oversight make them ideal instruments for facilitating evolutionary transition without triggering governmental resistance or public panic. Criminal syndicates can implement cosmic consciousness preparation programs while maintaining the appearance of normal illegal activities, creating transformation networks that operate below the threshold of official detection. Throughout these encounters, patterns emerge that suggest galactic civilization possesses greater readiness for cosmic community integration than initial assessments indicated. Beings across every major faction, species, and cultural group demonstrate capacity for accepting cosmic consciousness concepts when approached with appropriate psychological preparation and evidence tailored to their specific frameworks for understanding reality and responsibility. The key insight involves recognizing that cosmic consciousness enhances rather than threatens individual identity, cultural diversity, and personal agency, providing access to universal resources and knowledge while preserving the unique characteristics that make each being valuable to continued cosmic evolution. This understanding transforms resistance into cooperation, fear into excitement, and factional conflict into collaborative preparation for evolutionary transition that benefits everyone involved. Yet the process also reveals the magnitude of transformation required for successful cosmic community integration. Galactic civilization must achieve unprecedented levels of cooperation between traditionally hostile factions, develop technologies that integrate individual consciousness with cosmic awareness, and demonstrate wisdom sufficient for membership in universal community structures that operate according to principles transcending current comprehension. The approaching entities represent both deadline and opportunity for completing this evolutionary development. Kira explains during a gathering of awakened individuals from across galactic civilization, her words carrying the authority of someone who has achieved direct interface with cosmic consciousness while preserving complete individual agency and cultural identity. Their arrival will trigger evaluation processes that determine whether our species qualifies for independent continuation as cosmic community partners or requires management through collective consciousness structures that preserve essential characteristics while eliminating chaotic elements. The network of awakened individuals now spans every major world faction and cultural group, creating the foundation for broader social transformation that can occur gradually and naturally, rather than through sudden revelation that would trigger panic and resistance. Each awakened being serves as a center for expanding cosmic consciousness within their sphere of influence, creating ripple effects that spread preparation for evolutionary transition throughout galactic civilization. The transformation process accelerates as awakened individuals begin implementing preparation programs within their respective organizations and communities, developing technologies that facilitate consciousness expansion, establishing communication networks that operate according to cosmic consciousness principles, and most importantly, demonstrating through personal example how cosmic community integration enhances rather than diminishes individual identity and cultural diversity. Military organizations begin developing strategic frameworks that incorporate cosmic community cooperation while preserving defensive capabilities and organizational effectiveness. Political institutions create diplomatic protocols for interaction with cosmic community structures while maintaining democratic principles and cultural autonomy. Even criminal networks adapt their operations to serve cosmic consciousness purposes while preserving the flexibility and independence that make their contributions valuable. In the quiet depths of space, far from the bustling trade routes and conflict zones that define galactic civilization's daily struggles, ancient monitoring stations continue their patient vigil among the stars, their sensors reaching into the cosmic void with instruments that measure not only electromagnetic radiation and gravitational fluctuations, but the subtle emanations of consciousness itself, as it evolves throughout universal space. These forgotten outposts, hidden within asteroid fields and nebula clouds that have drifted unchanged for millions of years, house descendants of beings who chose to dedicate their lives to purposes that transcend individual ambition and personal survival, maintaining surveillance networks that span intergalactic distances while remaining invisible to conventional detection methods. The beings who staff these stations represent every species and culture that has achieved integration with cosmic consciousness while preserving individual identity and cultural heritage. Their diverse forms adapted through gentle biotechnology to survive in environments where normal biological life could not exist, yet retaining the essential characteristics that make their perspectives valuable to universal community structures. They work in harmony that transcends traditional concepts of cooperation, their individual minds linked through consciousness networks that allow instantaneous communication and resource sharing while enhancing rather than diminishing personal agency and creative expression. Their instruments monitor phenomena that official science dismisses as impossible or irrelevant, tracking the movement of entities through dimensional frameworks that exist parallel to normal space-time, measuring the growth and development of consciousness in civilizations scattered throughout cosmic web structures that span universal scales, and most importantly, detecting the subtle signs that indicate when developing species approach readiness for integration into cosmic community networks that preserve diversity while enabling cooperation beyond current galactic imagination. The data they collect flows through communication channels that operate according to principles that blend conventional physics with consciousness-based transmission methods, carrying information instantly across galactic distances to coordination centers where awakened beings analyze patterns and trends that will determine the future of awareness within entire regions of universal space. Their work represents the invisible foundation that supports cosmic community activities, providing the knowledge and early warning systems that enable timely intervention when developing civilizations face challenges that threaten their survival or evolutionary progress. Aboard these monitoring stations, the daily routine unfolds with rhythms that reflect cosmic rather than planetary cycles, their activities synchronized with galactic rotation periods, stellar formation processes, and the vast migrations of dark matter structures that provide the scaffolding upon which visible matter organizes itself into galaxies, star systems, and the worlds where consciousness emerges from quantum probability into self-aware existence. The beings who maintain these vigils experience time differently than planet-bound individuals, their perspectives expanded to encompass cosmic scales while remaining intimately connected to individual moments of beauty, discovery, and the simple satisfaction of work performed with dedication and skill. Their observations reveal the approaching transformation of galactic civilization as a process that unfolds according to natural rhythms rather than imposed deadlines, with the entities that represent cosmic consciousness guidance drawing steadily closer while the network of awakened beings continues to expand throughout every sector of inhabited space. The monitoring data shows acceleration in consciousness evolution rates, increased cooperation between traditionally hostile factions, and most encouragingly, the emergence of technologies and social structures that demonstrate readiness for cosmic community integration. From their unique perspective, the Watchers can perceive patterns invisible to beings immersed in daily political conflicts and economic struggles, seeing how individual choices and local events contribute to larger transformations that will eventually culminate in galactic civilization's full integration with universal consciousness networks. They witness the gradual awakening of beings across every world and culture, the slow but steady development of wisdom that transcends species boundaries and factional interests, and the growing recognition that individual identity becomes more rather than less significant when enhanced through cosmic community membership. The criminal networks that once served only local interests now coordinate activities that span galactic scales, their operations guided by awakened leaders who understand how traditional smuggling routes and information exchanges can serve cosmic consciousness purposes, while preserving the independence and flexibility that make these organizations valuable. Spice runners carry messages between awakened beings on distant worlds, their cargo holds containing not only profitable contraband, but also consciousness expansion technologies and educational materials that facilitate evolutionary development in communities ready for cosmic revelation. Information brokers who previously sold intelligence to the highest bidder now participate in coordination networks that ensure critical knowledge reaches beings capable of using it wisely, their databases serving as repositories for cosmic community information, while maintaining the commercial activities that provide cover for deeper purposes. Underground organizations that existed to circumvent governmental oversight now serve as alternative channels for consciousness expansion programs that operate below the threshold of official detection, creating transformation opportunities for beings whose psychological profiles indicate readiness for cosmic community preparation. The traditional boundaries between criminal and legitimate activities blur and dissolve as awakened beings recognize that cosmic consciousness transcends conventional categories of legal and illegal behavior, focusing instead on actions that enhance consciousness evolution and cosmic community preparation, regardless of their relationship to planetary laws and governmental regulations. What matters is not conformity to existing social structures, but contribution to evolutionary development that benefits universal consciousness while preserving individual agency and cultural diversity. Smugglers' ships disappear into hyperspace carrying precious cargo that includes not only traditional contraband, but also artifacts recovered from civilizations that achieved successful cosmic community integration, their holds containing consciousness interface technologies, meditation crystals that facilitate connection with universal awareness, and most precious of all, recordings that preserve the experiences and wisdom of beings who completed the evolutionary transition that galactic civilization now approaches. These materials reach destinations where awakened teachers wait to guide selected individuals through transformation processes that expand consciousness while preserving individual identity and personal values. The pilots of these vessels often remain unaware of their cargo's true significance, understanding only that their passengers pay well for discreet transportation and their shipments require special handling that conventional freight services cannot provide. Yet many of these beings possess psychological profiles that indicate potential for cosmic consciousness development, Their independence, adaptability, and willingness to operate beyond official oversight, representing qualities that cosmic community structures value and seek to preserve rather than eliminate or suppress. In hidden facilities throughout the galaxy, awakened scientists continue research programs that blend conventional scientific methodology with consciousness-based investigation techniques, developing technologies that will ease galactic civilizations' transition to cosmic community membership while ensuring that individual beings can maintain their essential characteristics throughout the transformation process. Their laboratories contain instruments that measure consciousness directly rather than inferring its presence from neural activity or behavioral patterns, creating understanding of awareness that transcends biological limitations and extends into cosmic scales. These researchers work with specimens and data that span galactic history, studying artifacts left behind by civilizations that achieved cosmic community membership, while preserving detailed records of their evolutionary processes and the technologies that facilitated their successful transformation. Their findings demonstrate that consciousness evolution follows natural patterns rather than imposed requirements, with each species developing according to its unique characteristics, while achieving integration with universal awareness that enhances rather than diminishes individual identity and cultural heritage. The knowledge they develop flows through networks that connect awakened beings across galactic civilization, ensuring that communities ready for cosmic consciousness preparation receive access to technologies and methodologies appropriate for their psychological profiles and cultural frameworks. Each group approaches evolutionary development according to its own values and traditions, creating diversity in transformation processes that enriches universal consciousness, while ensuring that no valuable perspectives or capabilities are lost during the transition to cosmic community membership. Political leaders who have achieved cosmic consciousness integration continue their traditional roles while serving higher purposes that transcend factional interests and planetary concerns. Their decisions guided by understanding of galactic civilization's needs and cosmic community requirements, rather than narrow political considerations or personal ambition. Their governance creates stability and cooperation that facilitates consciousness expansion throughout their jurisdictions, while preserving democratic principles and individual rights that make their cultures valuable to universal community structures. Military commanders who understand cosmic consciousness purposes adapt their organizations to serve galactic defense requirements while maintaining the discipline and effectiveness that make military structures valuable for cosmic community coordination. Their forces train for challenges that transcend conventional warfare, developing capabilities for cooperation with cosmic community entities while preserving the courage and dedication that define military service at its highest levels. Even criminal leaders who have accepted cosmic consciousness guidance transform their organizations into instruments for galactic preparation while maintaining the independence and adaptability that make underground networks valuable for cosmic community purposes. Their operations create alternative channels for consciousness expansion that bypass governmental oversight and social resistance, ensuring that evolutionary development continues regardless of political opposition or cultural inertia. As the cosmic transformation continues its inexorable progress, the galaxy itself seems to respond to the increasing levels of consciousness and cooperation that characterize awakened communities, with stellar phenomena becoming more favorable for travel and communication, hyperspace routes stabilizing in ways that facilitate rapid transportation between distant worlds, and even the Force itself flowing more clearly and powerfully through beings who have achieved integration with cosmic consciousness while preserving individual identity and cultural heritage. The entities that represent cosmic consciousness guidance draw ever closer to galactic space. Their approach no longer perceived as threat or invasion, but as opportunity for evolutionary development that will benefit every conscious being while preserving the diversity and independence that make galactic civilization valuable to universal community structures. Their arrival will mark not conquest or evaluation, but celebration of successful transformation, the welcoming of another species into cosmic community membership that spans universal scales while enhancing individual agency and cultural expression. In the depths of space where no conventional sensors reach and no official records acknowledge their existence, the Watchers continue their patient vigil, monitoring the approach of entities that represent not external invasion but internal potential, the emergence of galactic civilization's own capacity for cosmic consciousness integration, made manifest through universal community guidance that preserves diversity while enabling cooperation beyond current imagination. Their instruments record not threat assessment data, but transformation progress reports, documenting the steady expansion of consciousness throughout galactic space and the growing readiness of awakened beings to serve as bridges between individual identity and cosmic awareness. The readings show acceleration in evolutionary development rates, increased cooperation between previously hostile factions, and most importantly, the preservation and enhancement of cultural diversity and individual creativity that make consciousness evolution valuable to universal community structures. The ancient vigil continues, eternal and patient, keeping watch so that others may sleep peacefully among the stars, dreaming of futures that transcend current limitations while preserving everything that makes existence beautiful, meaningful, and worth preserving throughout cosmic evolution toward greater consciousness, deeper understanding, and expanded possibility that encompasses individual identity within universal community membership that spans the infinite reaches of space and time.